so extraordinarily well, I'm going to forget everything. I don't know what it's going to be, so here we go. I appreciate your patience. Hi there, my name's Alexis Mclaughlin. Nice to meet you. Prior to starting Morgan, I served 8 years in the Army, 8 years in active duty. Before that, I was a cadet at West Point, United States Military Academy, where I majored in civil engineering. I was also captain of the women's rugby team, Division I. Over the course of my career, I know. Over the course of my career, I did everything from road repair, bridge emplacement, to serving at top secret government intelligence agencies. Are you impressed? Well, you should be, because it's impressive. I can guarantee you that there are many people here with even more impressive resumes and even more impressive pitches. You've memorized and boiled it down to that perfect 1 to 2 minute story pitch. But lately I've asked myself, why am I not more moved, more inspired by some of these impressive stories and pitches? And it occurred to me that the impressive stuff, the stuff that matters, they aren't in a highlight on a resume, right? The impressive stuff is in the before and after. It's the stuff between the lines. It's in the margins. The impressive stuff is hidden in the white space, in plain sight. Soak that in. I'm gonna just stand here and let you soak that in, because that segue was fucking flawless. So I'm gonna take you back to my resume, but this time I'm gonna take you to the white space, right? So my resume starts at West Point. But before West Point, I was actually a student athlete at a college for 3 years, a small regional school in Long Island. I was a captain of a women's basketball team there. Between my first and second year, I came out to my family. Did not go well. Did not go well at all. To give you some background, my family is very conservative, very Christian. So at minimum, we were in church 3 times a week. So Sunday prayer service, Wednesday night Bible study, Friday night youth group. Church was the center of our social and religious lives. So I get on the phone, I tell my mom, look, I'm gay. And her response essentially is, I know, it's okay, it's all right. We can fix it. Now, to be told you're broken by someone you trust and love, it's an experience, to say the least. It's tough. And that's a whole other story for another storytellers, but the long and short of it is, I couldn't be fixed. Because as it turns out, I'm really, really gay. I am exceptionally homosexual. It's incredible. My wife will attest to that. So yeah. So I couldn't go home. I couldn't go home for a while. On top of that, both my parents, this was shortly after 9/11, like 1 or 2 years after, both my parents lost their jobs around this time. My dad, he drives courtesy shuttles between New York hotels and airports. So when tourism all but stopped due to the attacks, he was downsized. My mother actually worked in an admin role. She was like a mid-level manager at Merrill Lynch. Her whole department was gutted, so she was downsized. I had to become financially independent pretty quick. So in light of all these events, I took up work as a janitor at the college that I was attending. And it wasn't glamorous work, I'm not going to pretend that it was, but it was a good situation. It was like a 2 birds, 1 stone situation. I was able to put money in my pocket, make ends meet, and the janitorial staff was able to stay on over the summers while we got the campus prepped for the following semester. So it was a good situation for me. Now my boss at the time, a man by the name of George Lederer, I called him Georgie, he became a father figure, a role model of sorts for me. And I remember one day after my shift, I was feeling really down and depressed. I go up to him and I says, Georgie, I'm dropping out of school. I'm going to enlist in the Army. This can't be my life. This can't be all that there is. And Georgie, he's this old, grizzled white guy. always chewing on a cheap cigar hanging out the corner of his mouth, a big old set of keys jangling from his pocket, you know, just blue collar, solid guy. He kind of looks off into the horizon, hearing everything I'm saying, and he goes, West Point. Yeah, you should do that instead. Go to West Point, don't drop out. And I'm puzzled. I had never heard of the words West Point before. No idea what he was talking about. And I look at him and he's going on and on about the school and the service and the tradition and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll just go there. I'll just go to West Point and check it out. It's literally the conversation. I'm not even kidding. So I go back to my room, I research West Point, and something clicks. I look at the pictures and I realize, that's my life. That's me. That's where I belong, right? And I was going to do everything in my power to get there. And I did. Fast forward a few months or so, you know, later down the road, I'm at West Point. And the first year at West Point is the most difficult, all right? So not only do you have this incredible course load, you're transitioning from civilian to military life, and the upperclassmen are fucking terrible. They are just the worst human beings on the planet. They pay a special brand of attention to the freshmen. There were very few people of color, even fewer women. And on top of that, this was during the dark days of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So Don't Ask, Don't Tell is a law that basically meant if I came out as gay, or someone found out I was gay, I would be kicked out. So it was tough. Now don't get me wrong, I'm very blessed, very fortunate to have the opportunity to attend West Point. It opened up several doors, but it also came at a very, very deep and personal cost. I ended up declaring civil engineering as my major, and it was tough. The graded assignments, the homework, the course load, it was very difficult for me to keep my head above water. Very difficult. Some nights I would literally go back to my room and just cry. My classmates, they were so impressive. You know, these guys were, and girls, were valedictorians, salutatorians. They were sons and daughters of CEOs and generals. I used to clean toilets. But even in those dark days, I did have some seminal moments where I figured, you know, it's okay, I'm going to be all right. One moment comes to mind in particular. I took a class, it was an engineering mathematics course, right? We were divided up into groups for this bonus project. We had to figure out the right parameters and variables to launch a little rubber ball into a bucket using this erector set machine. It was like a little catapult machine made out of Legos, essentially. So we're divided up into groups. I ended up getting like two of the smartest guys in the class in my group. And they get to work. And they ignore me, as usual. Class bell rings. I go back to the instructor with my calculations. And I hadn't gotten very far. I had a lot of errors. But he works with me, points me in the right direction, sends me on my way. I don't know why, but for some reason, I am like a cadet possessed. I have to figure this out. I have to get this one right. I stay up all night poring over these calculations again and again, writing it out, erasing, writing it out, and erasing. I didn't go to sleep that night. The next day, class starts up, and as it turns out, no one was able to come up with a viable solution for this contest. Clock's winding down, and I'm just sitting there silent, looking at this paper that I had poured so much of myself into, afraid to stand up. Up until that point, I had just remained hidden in class. I stayed out of everyone's way because I never knew the right answers. I didn't know what the hell was going on half the time. And I'm sitting there looking at this precious, precious thing. And finally I say, you know, it's now or never. So I stand up, voice shaking, head bowed, and I say, hey guys, this is probably all wrong, but here's a little something I worked on. Maybe it can help. My classmate kind of takes it and takes a quick look and goes, huh, this actually looks okay. Thank you, Mclaughlin. Makes a few tweaks to it. We submit that paper for the competition. Our team was the only team to get that little rubber ball into the bucket. And when I tell you I stood in the back of that class, eyes tearing up, chest puffed out, you would have thought those bonus points was like a Nobel Prize. Now, I'm practical. I know I'm never going to know what it's like to be a straight-A student. I don't know what it's like to be voted valedictorian. I don't really know what it's like to max out a test. But that day, I was smart. I was special. And I will never forget that day for the rest of my life. I ended up graduating West Point with a degree in civil engineering, just like that very impressive bullet point on my resume states. But that is nowhere near the most impressive part of me. The impressive part is in the before and after. The most vulnerable pieces of me is contained in the margins and between the lines. That's where that is. I hope after listening to me today, you all will be inspired to share some more of your white space with people. I know I look forward to continuing to share mine.